Alrighty, got my tea, got my notes. Let's get funky with it. Now you guys might be saying, hey Chad, the hair looks good. Why are you letting it breathe? Why are you letting it hang out? Well, I'm cutting it all off on Friday, so I wanted to give it the proper farewell that it deserves. It is now currently too hot for me to run outside with all this hair, so it is time to go a bit shorter. So rest in peace, hair. Also, because this week I could use a little break, little tired of writing papers and stuff, so me and my brother, I hope, are gonna go see Endgame tonight. As such, you might be wondering, Chad, this doesn't look like your regular rig. It is not. This is my kitchen, and as such, I need an ability today to go see Endgame and not spend 8 hours filming dumb skits and setting up lighting and editing forever. My show time is at 7, I'm filming this at 10. So I need to make this a little bit shorter and a little less informal. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be information-packed, and at least for me, it doesn't mean it's not going to be interesting. So I figured instead of doing a regular studio video today with these long scripts and well-thought-out ideas, I would give myself a little bit of time, not to rant necessarily, because I think you have to be mad to rant, just things that I'd like to kind of correct for the record that I see often with, like, J-vloggers trying to get tattoos or talk about tattoos in Japan. So I myself have been working in Japanese tattoo shops for the last 5 years. I'm 25 now, started around when I was 20. Believe it or not, I didn't set a mark on my calendar, like start it today. I translate, so I help either his foreign business clients or maybe his Japanese clients want something to do with English and they just want to make sure everything's on the level. My job is to translate it. I do some interpreting work sometimes, usually for my friends when I bring in other people of non-Japanese descent. I can interpret, but that's not my speciality. Now, why did I say this up front? Because I'm sure all 12,000 of you probably know that this is what I've been doing for this amount of time. There's a lot of you maybe scrolling through. I get a lot of my views just from the recommended feed who don't know who I am. My name is Chad. I do YouTube videos, but my more resume-related stuff happens to be with translating for various tattoo shops. Now, what I'm going to be talking about today is my opinion. It's from what I've experienced inside the realm, inside the bubble, shall they say. And it's also from my boss's perspective. He's been doing it for over 40 years now, and I made sure to email with him, which is why I have my phone set up right next to my tea, because I just wanted to make sure that all of the time that I've spent with him and inside his shop and the hours I've spent next to him, talking to him, watching videos with him in these little community shops that we have. We talk about a lot of stuff, and a lot of it has to do with Japanese tattoos and how it kind of melts with foreign culture, because I happen to be foreign and I'm the only foreigner there. So that's where a lot of our questions come from, and I might be wrong, I might forget stuff, so I made sure to email him this week just to make sure, you know, I have as correct of an idea as I possibly can to convey to you guys. If you do not trust my 5 years of work, if you do not trust Yas's 40 years, because he's like 60-something now, okay, no worries, you can scroll on. I don't have a news article to link you to. I don't have a Wikipedia article, because this is just from his experience and he conveyed it to me, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I've even brought this up with him. It's really funny that so many YouTubers they almost make the mob there seem so much bigger, so much more powerful and scary than it is. It's a lot of white-collar crimes. There is still street fights in my city a lot, in Fukuoka. If you watch the news, you'll know that, you know, usually at the morning news, you would have heard that there was a brawl outside of a 7-Eleven, but it's not like they're decapitating heads, it's not like they're robbing banks, it's not like they're, you know, whipping out Uzis. It's like very minor street fights where no one really gets hurt or dies. And then a lot of white-collar crime, stuff like rigging gambling or running pachinko, you know, places. It's not crime that you see on the streets or that you, as a foreigner, you'd really ever interact with. So yeah, I get there's this mysticism, and I get that there's this kind of cool thing when you play the Yakuza games, and you're like, oh, this is this cool, you know, Japanese-styled mafia that's out there. And this video is not going to be correcting that, but a lot of foreigners having this preconception of what they're like, never actually talking to any of them or hanging out with them. You don't realize that, I mean, a lot of these kids are fresh out of high school and they're hanging in these shops because their dads hanged in these shops, their grandparents hanged in these shops. They go to karaage restaurants that are run by people that are in these small communities in the same way church people kind of run in their own same communities. And I gotta say, I've been in church communities in Japan. I've been in these tattoo-y shop, you know, kind of shady individual areas a lot, and both have been welcoming and nice to me. Doesn't mean they all are. I understand I'm talking from my experience, but they're not these scary, you know, willing to pick a fight with anyone individuals that I typically see portrayed in media. So, because of that, what are a couple of the things that you tend to get with J-vloggers, right? The obvious ones are like, oh, you can't go into onsens with tattoos, and I've talked about that, or like, it's not traditional Japanese tattooing if it's not done with the tebori. Both are nonsense, right? Japanese people have been tattooing the traditional style since the machines made it to Japan. It's more sanitary, it's quicker, it's more even. The truth of the matter is the country's changing. That it is 2019. And when a lot of these people are doing their Google searches of what this stuff is like, it's coming from like mid-90s or earlier information. And I'm pretty sure if you ask any Japanese person if the culture in the 90s, in the 80s, or before is the same as today, you will get a resounding no. So 2 instances that I'm gonna just kind of cover briefly, and if you guys want more, I could do a whole series on this because it is a lot of misinformation that I end up finding, is that you see tattoos that represent, and I gotta make sure I do this right, tattoos that represent maybe ranks or deeds within shady groups that happen to convey hidden meanings. And this is both, that sentence has a truth, but also a lot of misinformation in it. So a lot of people will think, much like in the West, we have like the teardrop. And everyone says it's different. It's like you killed someone while you were in jail, or you just did time for your buddies or whatever it is. This one, I actually had a long conversation with Yas about. So what he ended up explaining to me, and I'm sorry if I'm reading my phone, I want to make sure I get this right, is that it's more of the tattooer's opinion from what he heard of the community about you. So your body is like a tapestry, and it is conveying a meaning when it is shown to somebody. Much like in early Christianity, right? All those cool stained glass windows that you see around. A lot of the people back then were illiterate. They couldn't read. So how did you convey meaning? With symbols. You'd see Jesus flipping the table, and you'd be like, oh, now I remember that story that the pastor said, instead of having the words. So in Japan, it's the same thing. They've only had a written language for around, or at least a common written language that everyone could probably understand some amount of, 1700s? Before that, used images. What also would happen, and I have to make sure, let's cover this correctly. He said that in these groups, in these communities of people, you get people that are both in these shady groups and just maybe their families, their wives, their kids, people that aren't. But they're all in this community, sort of like a church. And what ends up happening when you have that is, let's say you're kind of a low-level brawler guy. Like, you just like to fight because you're kind of a D-bag, and we have that in every culture, right? It would get around in those communities, oh, he beat up this other kid from this other thing. And the watering hole, per se, of a lot of these groups were the back areas of izakaya, which were some of the earliest shops. And what would happen is you'd go back there and you would talk about the events of what happened with the people. It's kind of like a Facebook or like a community corkboard, for instance. And when you would then go in to get a tattoo, as a part of your story, the guy would be like, oh, this guy's a real menace. And so he would give you tattoos that kind of represent that you're, angry or brawling or whatever. It's not a rank. It's not like, oh yeah, you beat up this guy. So it's not that that's a rank earned. It's just that is kind of how you're perceived in the greater community. And I thought that was really cool because there really is truth to it. It's not a rank, but you did earn that piece by doing that thing in a sense, but it's not bestowed upon you. And because there's a communal watering hole feeling that is still preserved in Japanese tattooing culture, it is still prevalent that people will just go into the shop even when they don't have tattoos, almost like a barber shop in the West, and just hang out, watch other people get their tattoos done, talk about the day, talk about what's going on in their lives. That is maintained in the Japanese tattooing communities. And I just think that's really cool. And the truth, even though, yeah, it's not as cool as maybe tattooing yourself with, like, I'm a second lieutenant, right? You have this idea of ranks. It almost opens up a new area of something that's just really cool and interesting that you don't really think about, that there is still this communal watering hole in a country that really is very disconnected and isolated because of technology. So the next one I want to cover was brought up in the Discord channel. If you guys don't know, I have a Discord. If you have any questions, the community there is really cool. We have over 200 people in there. But someone was saying, and I saved this from a while back, but I don't remember who posted it. I just said, oh, that'd make for an interesting topic, because it wasn't true. But as a summary, they were saying foreigners in Japan can't have the Japanese style tattoos. They could have Japanese tattoos, but not the style tattoos, because there'll be retaliation from mobsters, or, you know, they might get in trouble for like cultural appropriation. I understand that that's a hot topic. I'm not going to get into cultural appropriation other than it doesn't really exist in Japan. That outrage isn't there. Japan has frequently absorbed other cultures as it pertains to their tattoo culture. They've done it in a lot of areas of their lives, but when you look at a lot of traditional Japanese pieces, such as hopefully something I'm throwing on to the screen now, you'll see things like Buddhist mantras, because Buddhism is not native to Japan. It came over from the rest of Asia. You'll also see stuff from India, like Hindu gods are super popular. And when I'm actually at the shop, there's at least 1 or 2 out of every people either getting tattooed or on the couches where we're sitting that have them on their arms, their chest. I know a guy that has a full back piece of it, but that's from India, and it's of their deities and religion. So why do I bring this up? I mean, Japan has a 400-year history since the 1600s. I think it's the early to mid 1600s of Indian people coming to Japan. Because of that, Japan absorbed those images and their meanings, their folklore, their stories, and it became part of Japanese culture. So you'll see a lot of like Buddhist deities and Buddhist guardians and gods at temples, but you also see Indian gods all the time in tattoos. They appropriated that Indian culture, that Indian history, not as a bad thing, but because they liked what it represented. And I imagine that is 90% of the reason people get Japanese tattoos, is because they like the way that it looks and they like what it represents. As someone who has taken many foreigners to get tattoos in Japan from a traditional Japanese shop, but is foreign myself, has plenty of tattoos myself, they don't care. It's just not a big deal. You can walk around Japan, feel safe. If you have like a Japanese, you know, sakura tree on your arm, no one's gonna beat you up. No one's gonna be like, hey, you're stealing our culture. It's just not a thing. Every person I've shown my tattoos to, Japanese or otherwise, has had nothing but really nice things to say. So if you hear somewhere online that you have to cover up your tattoos when you're walking around, tell them to piss off. If you're in a job in Japan, yeah, they might have rules about, you know, you have to wear long sleeves or certain dress attire, or they might not hire you because they have a visible tattoo policy. So if you have stuff on your face, your neck, your hands, but just if you're a tourist walking around, everything's okay. Everything's gonna be okay. Man, I'm really deep into this video, and I'm not even a halfway done with all the points I need to make. So how about this? I'll wrap it up here. If this didn't interest you at all, if this didn't answer any questions you had, no worries, I understand. If you have any questions about Japanese tattoos, the tattoo culture, or maybe just Japan in general, I tend to try and help people as best as I can. If I can't make a video about it, I will answer you directly in the comments. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments, like always, do not hesitate to leave a like down below and comment what you guys want to know. I am here to serve. If I have an answer, I will give it. If I don't, I will ask, because I know the people who do. So thank you so much for sticking around. Real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to Razali. I went to my P.O. box. I have a link in the description down below. They sent me this really sweet hat and this super cool shirt, and I wanted to just say thank you guys so much. They didn't sponsor this video. They didn't give me any money to do this. This was just me. Like, they just sent it to me and said, hey, we love your channel. Can I send you a shirt? And I was like, totally. And I got it, and I love it. It's my favorite shirt. This is now my favorite hat. I'll probably be wearing this one most of the time from now on. So thank you guys so much. I will put a link in the description if you guys want to check out their Instagram page or store or whatever they happen to have. I'll find something that you can get a hold of them with. So as always, I'd like to thank my Patreons. You guys are amazing. Could not do this without you. Thank you so much to everyone who supports this. If you watch this, you're really cool. I will see you on the live stream on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Mountain Time. And then back again on Wednesday next week. All right, love hard, love deep, and I will see you all next week. Hopefully Endgame is good.